In the quiet, secluded town of Maplewood, hidden away deep in the woods, a dark legend had been passed down through the years. It was a story of love, betrayal, and an unrelenting thirst for revenge. This was the tale of Jessica, a woman whose beauty was unmatched, but whose soul had been shattered beyond repair. Jessica had once been a woman of elegance and charm, adored by everyone who laid eyes on her. Her long golden hair flowed like silk, and her skin shone with the smoothness of porcelain. Her husband, Thomas, was a wealthy businessman, known throughout the town for his charm and success. He was a man who viewed his marriage as a possession, something to control and manipulate to serve his desires. Despite his wealth and stature, Thomas was never satisfied. He was consumed by greed, lust, and an unquenchable desire for other women. He took Jessica for granted, ignoring her emotional needs, and sought solace in the arms of other women. One fateful night, when Jessica's heart had been shattered for the final time, everything changed. Thomas had been gone for days, lost in his infidelities, leaving Jessica alone in the massive, cold mansion they called home. She had begged him to come back, to return to her, but his response had been cold and indifferent. "I don't need you anymore," Thomas had said cruelly. "You're just a pretty face. I need more." The words cut through Jessica like a knife, but they also ignited something dark inside her, a fire that would never be extinguished. In that moment, Jessica's love for Thomas twisted into something far darker, something far more dangerous. For the next few days, Jessica remained in her sorrow, but she also began to plot. She knew she had been wronged, and she vowed that Thomas would pay dearly for his betrayal. It would not be enough to simply kill him. No, that would be too kind. Jessica needed him to suffer, to feel the agony she had endured. One night, Thomas finally returned, exhausted from his affairs, and Jessica greeted him with a smile that concealed the darkness now taking root in her heart. She prepared an extravagant meal for him, complete with all his favorite dishes and a bottle of wine that had cost a small fortune. He sat at the table, oblivious to the storm that raged in his wife's soul. They ate in silence, the tension in the room thick and suffocating. Jessica poured him another glass of wine, watching as he drank deeply, his eyes never leaving hers. She smiled sweetly, telling him how much she had missed him, how she had longed for him to return. Thomas, intoxicated by the wine and his own arrogance, leaned in to kiss her, but Jessica's kiss was cold, so cold it froze him in place. Before Thomas could react, Jessica grabbed the silver knife she had hidden beneath the table. With a swift, practiced motion, she plunged it deep into his chest, severing his heart in a single strike. Thomas gasped, his eyes wide with shock and pain, but Jessica was not finished. She didn't stop there. She bound him, dragged his lifeless body to their bedroom, and performed a cruel, methodical act of mutilation. It wasn't just revenge. It was a ritual, a symbolic act to mark her victory over the man who had destroyed her. When Jessica was done, she stood over his bloodied body, breathing heavily with the weight of her emotions. She had killed him, yes, but she had also taken something far more valuable: his pride, his masculinity. She cut off his penis and, with a twisted smile, knew it would be the key to her next step in her cycle of revenge. The town of Maplewood would never see Thomas again. His body was buried deep in the woods, and the only trace of him left behind was the gruesome act of mutilation Jessica had committed. But Jessica's thirst for vengeance didn't stop with her husband's death. No, she had a far grander plan, one that would ensure that every man who crossed her path would feel the same pain she had. Every man who dared to approach her would pay. Jessica became a shadow in Maplewood, a name that only whispered through the town in fear. She no longer went by her own name. She was known simply as the Mistress of Vengeance. Men from all over town and beyond came to her, drawn by rumors of her beauty and the promise of indulgence. They didn't know what awaited them. To them, she was a goddess, a woman who could fulfill their deepest fantasies. But Jessica's intentions were far darker. One by one, she lured them into her home, seduced them with her beauty and charm, and then she struck. The men, intoxicated by desire, entered her home without hesitation, believing they were about to experience ecstasy. Instead, they were met with a fate far worse than death. Jessica would take them to her bedroom, where she would bind them, drug them, and prepare them for the ritual she had perfected. Her methods were precise. She would start with slow, tantalizing seduction, weaving lies and sweet promises into every word. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere would grow heavy with unease. The men, completely unaware of the danger, would become more intoxicated by her charms. Then, when they were at their weakest, Jessica would strike. She would cut them, slow and deliberate, taking from them what she had taken from Thomas, their manhood. She would leave their mutilated bodies in the woods, a grim warning to anyone else who might fall under her spell. Her vengeance became a cycle, endless and unrelenting. She had become a living nightmare, a figure of death and terror. The townspeople had learned to avoid speaking her name, for they knew the fate that awaited any man who crossed her path. Jessica's beauty had become her curse, and her thirst for vengeance had turned her into something far more horrifying than a mere woman. She had become an embodiment of pain, betrayal, and suffering. It was said that Jessica, the Mistress of Vengeance, would never die. She would live on forever, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next unsuspecting man to fall into her trap. Her wrath would be eternal, and her revenge would never be satisfied. The town of Maplewood was never the same. The men who once roamed its streets now stayed away, terrified of the woman who had once been their dream, but who had now become their worst nightmare. And as the years passed, the legend of Jessica, the Mistress of Vengeance, grew. But no one knew what had become of her. Some said she had vanished into the night, her vengeful spirit still haunting the woods. Others claimed she still lived in the shadows, waiting for the next man to betray her, to pay for the sins of the past. What was certain, though, was that Jessica's vengeance would never end. And as long as men continued to betray women, her legacy would live on, a terrifying reminder of the power of a woman scorned.